This is it. I mean, this is really it.
His stunning comeback would have raked in hundreds of millions of dollars. But why was Michael Jackson already in a financial freefall?
He was spending like a billionaire, but only earning like a millionaire.
We'll follow Michael's twisted money trail. After making millions, how did he end up owing millions?
He would spend millions of dollars on paintings, houses, on traveling around the world.
After the mountains of debts are paid, will there be anything left for the kids? Get ready for the answers. Forbes presents Michael Jackson, Where's the Money? Next.
This has got to be the worst day of my life.
At the time of his death, Michael Jackson had about $400 million in debt.
He would blow through millions on exotic animals, on lavish trips.
He had $10,000 a night hotel suites, $2 million watches.
If he wanted it, he would spend big to get it.
Lavish spending, a staggering $400 million in debt. To understand how Michael got into this mess, you have to go back to the beginning. In 1969, a group of brothers from Gary, Indiana, stormed out of the gate as the newest act from Motown Records. The Jackson 5, featuring Michael Jackson as lead singer, enjoyed a great, if not spectacularly lucrative, ride.
They were a touring act. They sold a lot of records, millions of records, but they really weren't able to make the serious money because Motown controlled all of their acts.
Michael's dad, Joe, got a better deal when he jumped labels to Epic Records in 1975. But Michael looked beyond that. He wanted to grow as a performer, do more solo work, and make more money. Michael hired John Branca, an attorney and manager whose clients have included the Rolling Stones and the Bee Gees.
And the first thing he told John Branca, according to what John told me, was, I want to be one of the biggest stars.
At the time, Michael's bank balance sat at $1 million.
You know, $1 million is not a lot of money. Michael wanted hundreds of millions of dollars, and he knew that John Branca was the man to do it.
They got to work. In 1979, 21-year-old Michael released Off the Wall. It sold an impressive 20 million copies worldwide and netted Michael an estimated $37 million. But his 1982 follow-up Thriller launched Michael into financial nirvana.
The Thriller album is the best-selling album of all time.
It sold 50 million copies that first year. And at a time when most successful artists earned an average of $1 an album, Michael cleaned up.
John Branca negotiated a deal for Michael Jackson where he actually received $2 per every album that he sold.
Michael earned a staggering $115 million from the Thriller album.
Before taxes, that is, and the money kept rolling in. In 1984, Michael decided to share the wealth when he reunited with his brothers for the Victory concert tour. Michael donated his $5 million cut to charity. The group also signed a $5 million endorsement deal with sponsor Pepsi-Cola.
This is a great honor.
The Victory Tour with Pepsi was an enormous deal for a variety of different reasons. It kind of set the stage for so many different artists in terms of branding tours.
However, a pyrotechnic accident during the shooting of a Pepsi commercial left Michael with painful burns. Friends claim this accident started Jackson's longtime addiction to expensive painkillers and plastic surgery. But on the bright side, Jackson's personal wealth had climbed to an estimated $70 million by 1985. Chump change compared to the financial bonanza Michael was about to experience after a tip from another music industry icon, Paul McCartney.
Paul said, you know, you really ought to consider publishing and buying the rights to, you know, songs. And Michael thought that was an interesting idea, and he, you know, kind of mulled it over, and he said, you know what, maybe one day I'll buy your songs, Paul.
Jackson paid $47.5 million for the ATV music catalog in 1985. The biggest asset there was the rights to the Beatles' music. 10 years later, he merged that with Sony.
Jackson's estimated income of $12 million in 1986 hardly covered the $47.5 million price tag for the Beatles catalog. But that wasn't a big deal.
Today, the value of that catalog is between $1 billion and $2 billion.
As the 80s continued, Michael kept working at churning out cash. 1987 saw the release of another hit album, Bad, and Michael's first solo concert tour.
More than 4.5 million people saw it. It was a success on an artistic level, it was a success on a business level, and his career couldn't have been going any stronger.
He was making money in all departments. He writes his songs, he produces his songs, he sings his songs, and he takes his songs on the road.
Based on industry projections, Michael's take for the Bad tour alone was an estimated $70 million. With all that cash in his pocket, Michael looked for another investment. This time, his target was real estate.
Michael's whole thing at that time was he wanted a house fit for a king. And certainly Neverland was that.
Jackson dropped a reported $17 million on his dream home, set amidst a 2,700-acre ranch outside of Santa Barbara, California.
He pointed to a little corner on the estate and he said, you could take all of the house I grew up in Havenhurst and Encino, and you could just put it right in this little corner.
Jackson reportedly spent much more, adding extras like a private zoo, amusement park rides, and even 2 small railroads to the property. With his dream home secured, Michael turned his attention back to making money. In 1990, his fortune was estimated at $175 million. The following year, he signed a groundbreaking 6-album deal with Sony.
Sony expected to generate $1 billion in sales from the contract. It was expected to be absolutely massive and generate money through sales of record albums, tours. They wanted Michael to star in a full feature-length movie.
But that deal would turn out to be more hype than reality. The movie never materialized. After 1997, Jackson stopped touring and his record sales began to fall dramatically. But Michael still walked away with an estimated $65 million of Sony's money. By 2002, that brought Jackson's fortune to an estimated total of $350 million. But even after the earnings stalled, the big spending continued. Coming up, Michael's shocking transformation as his empire crumbles. You won't believe where the money went.
The expense of that anywhere between.
By the middle of 1993, Michael's financial condition was a very dire one. A source who was close to Michael at the time has told us that Michael, in fact, was in $24 million of debt, and what really alerted his financial handlers was that Michael wanted to buy $750,000 worth of 2 animatronic figures, kind of like the things you would see at Disneyland, plus an antique clock that he had taken a liking to.
Michael's advisors held a financial intervention, but Jackson's spending had been out of control for years. For example, on the 1984 Victory Tour, a private business jet wasn't good enough for Michael, so he upgraded to a luxurious Boeing 707 airliner.
He came on board, looked around, literally this smile, and he's like, that's it. I'm not going back to the other airplane.
The leased plane was definitely roomy, but Michael let the rest of the Jackson brothers continue the tour by bus.
He actually was on the plane by himself, just surrounded by his personal staff. The brothers came on board once and saw the plane, and they were like, hey, that's a great-looking airplane, Michael. Hint, hint, you've got plenty of seats for us. And he's like, yeah, it is great, and I'll see you at the next stop.
The total price tag for the rental jet? $1.3 million. Jackson also incurred sky-high costs with his stage shows, from over-the-top costumes to wild and pricey effects, like a stunt with a working jetpack. Cost? $10,000 a pop. Michael didn't skip on his music videos either. In 1992, Sony asked Jackson to ante up $6.4 million because of cost overruns on a series of videos. But money issues made Michael tune out.
His assistant would present Michael with a handful of checks, obviously a big amount that he needed to sign. And what I had seen was he had said, oh, no, I don't want to be bothered with that.
He lived in a very kingly fashion and never really felt that money was an issue. Always felt that there would be an extra $1 million here or an extra $10 million there. When he was told that the money was running out or that it wasn't there, he just didn't believe it.
Michael's extravagant spending extended to the money he poured into his homes.
I was more worried about the bills than he was. He said, Charmy, I can afford to build this house and several others like it, so I don't want you to worry anymore.
The The spending went unabated at Neverland, where the staff sometimes ballooned to 150 people.
Just to run Neverland Ranch, it costs $4 to $5 million a year.
Michael loved his toys, and his expensive playthings ranged from this custom Rolls-Royce limousine, priced around $500,000, to a room-sized miniature castle, price estimated at around $40,000. Jackson even commissioned artists at $30,000 and more to create original portraits.
Just a really, really great piece that symbolizes to us who Michael Jackson is.
But in 1993, a headline-grabbing controversy cost Jackson even more dearly. Michael paid a king-size ransom when he settled out of court with a 13-year-old boy who accused Jackson of molestation. The rumored amount, $20 million.
He said he settled for one reason. He wanted to get on with his life. $20 million meant nothing to Michael Jackson at that point. He would have paid that, probably double that, just so that he could go on with his life and career.
Jackson's financial advisors tried to help him, but Michael turned a blind eye.
One of the issues for most of them was that, look, we can't reach this guy. We can't get in touch with him. We can't talk to him. We can't get a meeting with him. We don't want to do this anymore, and then they would quit.
By the late 90s, Jackson's personal spending was estimated at $750,000 a month. That's $25,000 a day. Another obsession also added to Michael's cash drain. Jackson seemed addicted to frequent and expensive plastic surgery.
Just looking at the progression of Michael Jackson's face over the years, starting in about 1984, I estimated that he probably had somewhere in the neighborhood of like 20 to 30 separate major plastic surgery procedures. So overall, the expense of that I would calculate at anywhere between $300,000 and over $500,000.
In 2005, Michael's financial problems became very public. During his trial on charges of child molestation, a forensic accountant detailed the singer's money woes.
He was bringing in $10 to $20 million a year, but was spending $30 to $40 million a year, which kept adding layer upon layer of debt, and that really put him in a cash-poor position.
Despite all of his debts, Michael continued to get loans because he owned two incredibly valuable assets: the rights to the Beatles' catalog of music, as well as his own future earnings potential.
So what did Jackson do when he spent the loan money and didn't have enough cash coming in to repay it? He took out new loans that pushed him deeper and deeper into debt.
In the last few years, Michael Jackson was making ridiculous interest payments. In 2005, it was said that on the $270 million in debt that he had, he was making $4.5 million a month in payments.
So what that meant is he got on a never-ending treadmill of debt and couldn't get himself out again.
In 2008, Michael Jackson was hunkered down in Las Vegas, an astounding $400 million in debt. The king of pop's financial emergency reached critical status.
Michael Jackson was near foreclosure and really needed a hero.
July 2008, Darren Julian of Julian's Auctions in West Hollywood was told to rush to Neverland Ranch to start organizing a sale.
Everything was so elaborate. Everything was over the top.
Nearly 1,400 items were selected, from Jackson's tour bus to a painting of Michael with Bubbles the chimp to one of the singer's famous gloves.
It's covered in Swarovski crystals, and it's made by Bill Whitten. It's completely handmade, but it's the most iconic piece of Michael Jackson you could have. There were some items that Michael had asked us specifically that he didn't want to be sold. There were 3 Rolls Royces that he wanted to give to his children when they got married.
The front gates of Neverland also made the sales list. Julian says he frequently spoke to Jackson on the phone, discussing such points as the design of the auction catalog.
He asked us to see Cher's catalog that we'd done, the Barbra Streisand catalog. You know, he looked at them and he said, you know, these are great, but I want mine to be better.
Michael never mentioned that money problems were the reason for the auction. As the April 2009 sale drew closer, another deal long in the works was being finalized. Michael's attempt to save Neverland Ranch had ballooned into something huge.
Michael Jackson mortgaged Neverland so much, up to $25 million, that he couldn't handle the finance on that.
By 2007, he defaulted on that loan, and Fortress, the company that had given him the loan, put a lien on that house.
So what happens is a billionaire named Tom Barrick comes in and rescues Michael Jackson. He basically buys the loan for $23 million from Fortress.
Tom Barrick is a billionaire CEO of Colony Capital. He made his money in real estate. He saw Neverland as a chance to turn this around and make money off of it.
Barrick also encouraged Michael to start performing again. he put Jackson together with concert promoters AEG. Slowly, Michael warmed to the idea of doing some shows.
Michael wanted to be able to go on stage and perform for his kids while he was still young enough to pull it off, he said, and his kids were now old enough to understand what it was he was doing.
On March 5th, 2009, Michael announced a 10-concert engagement in London.
This is the final curtain call.
Really ramped up to see Michael back on stage. The number of shows kept growing and growing, and eventually it reached 50 shows that he would do as a residency at London's O2 Arena.
Without exaggeration, and it's not hyperbole to say that hundreds of millions of dollars were going to be generated by these shows. Hundreds of millions of dollars.
Jackson's estimated payday for the London gigs and the anticipated worldwide tour, $400 million. Meanwhile, 8 months of preparations for the auction were almost complete.
The very day that Michael announced his concert comeback in London is a day that we were notified that a lawsuit was filed from his production company to stop the auction.
The lawsuit claimed the auction house didn't have permission to sell the items, as they had never submitted a final list of what was to be sold.
We had worked with his manager so closely during the whole process, and everything we had done was approved.
Although a judge ruled the auction could go forward, the two sides settled out of court. The sale was called off, but the planned exhibit of the items went ahead, with tickets sold at $20 a pop.
We were able to come to an agreement that both sides were happy with, and that's really what we wanted, and Michael wanted too.
Michael was now back in LA, prepping for the concerts. He moved into a $100,000 a month home in the exclusive neighborhood of Holmby Hills. Jackson even got his own doctor.
AEG was sparing no expense to make Michael happy, to make sure that he could perform, and they agreed to pay, at Michael's request, Dr. Conrad Murray, a cardiologist that Michael had met in Las Vegas, to go on tour with him, and they were willing to pay the doctor $150,000 a month.
It was Murray who discovered Jackson's unconscious body on June 25th, 2009. While the doctor's role in Michael's death would quickly become the focus of much attention, the debate over the singer's money was only starting to heat up.
Michael's death turned his finances upside down.
Straight ahead, what will be left for Michael's kids?
And charity.
The reported breakdown: Katherine Jackson gets 40% of Michael's assets. Various charities get another 20%. The remaining 40% will be divided by Jackson's 3 kids. Sorting out how much is left to split up will take time.
Of course, Uncle Sam's going to be the first one to get his money, and then after that you have the creditors.
Michael Jackson owed about $400 million at the time of his death. The only question is, how is the family going to meet those debts? How much of the assets are they going to have to sell off?
Michael's assets have been estimated to be worth between $750 million and $1.5 billion. Since his death, Jackson's finances have steadily improved.
Fans went out and bought his music in droves. He broke all sorts of sales records. On Nielsen SoundScan, he held all top 10 of some of the top 10 lists.
You have to remember that people used to own Thriller and Bad in record or cassette format. Now they want it in CD or they want it in their digital catalog.
And there's more Michael on the way.
I'll bet you only 20% of the songs Michael Jackson actually recorded actually have been released. Now the other 80% are going to be coming out, no doubt about it.
We're talking millions upon millions of dollars.
Even though the London comeback concerts never took place, AEG made a deal to produce the next best thing.
AEG plans to release a slew of footage from Michael Jackson's rehearsals for his London concerts. And it's been reported that they got $60 million from Sony in order to release this as a feature film.
Even the Neverland Ranch might become a money-making asset.
And conceivably, that could become like a Graceland, which Elvis Presley's estate did to his home, and it became a cash machine.
Michael Jackson's estate will continue to rake in millions after his death. His music catalog will generate in the neighborhood of $10 million per year. But the real value is in the likeness and image of Michael Jackson.
You're going to see new T-shirts. You're going to see, fashion lines inspired by him. You're going to see a whole plethora and array of different things that are all going to go to his estate.
Michael Jackson's children's future will be fine. I don't think they'll have to work another day in their life.
Being with them connects us to the deep wisdom of life. First, I'd like to thank my teacher.
Michael Jackson made millions and spent millions. While many things about Jackson's life and death may always remain a mystery, one thing is certain.
There is no question Michael Jackson is going to be worth more dead than he was alive.
I think he would just be laughing and dancing and moonwalking on the clouds.